by chance? I'll tell you. This is my personal oral protective device. And I am wearing this indefinitely because I didn't trust my gut. That's right, I didn't listen to myself. The purpose of this device is to protect the hole in the upper jaw here and the hole I have in my sinus. Between the hole in my upper jaw and the hole in my sinus, I have a bacteria superhighway in my mouth. And the reason I have a bacteria superhighway in my mouth is I didn't listen to a little voice in my head that I knew I should listen to. Toastmasters and our guest Connie today. Since I was a little girl, I could always hear that little voice inside that said, not such a good idea. Don't do that, move on. But I didn't listen. It took a lot of years, but I have learned to pay attention to my instincts and follow them. For the most part, I do. Late last year, I didn't, and it has been a big problem ever since. Things went awry when I developed a massive infection around this old stub of a dental implant that was still inside my upper jaw. The reason it was still there is that it was a fiasco when I had it put in, and I couldn't stand for it to be touched again. Dr. E, my dentist, called in some antibiotics, and I went in to see her for follow-up after the infection had gone. She said, "Lisa, you have to get that implant out." I equivocated, and I thought to myself, no way. I will have to think up something to tell her because I don't want to hurt her feelings. Wouldn't you know that as soon as I walked up to the receptionist to check out, her assistant proudly said, "Great news, Lisa. I've already gotten approval from your insurance company. Let's make your appointment right now." Whew. What am I going to do? Well, they're both standing there looking at me, and I thought, are you just trying to put this off? Are you making too much out of this? You just don't want to do it, so it's just not that big a deal. It's going to be much simpler the first time, a couple of slices with a scalpel, and it's out. How bad could it be? In spite of that little voice in my head screaming, "No!" I made an appointment. The day came, I got in the chair, I closed my eyes and I crossed my fingers, and I was determined not to open my eyes again till it was over. I was waiting after she loaded me up with Novocaine. I was waiting to feel her moving around with the scalpel to just make the slices. Bing, bong, bong. She was drilling that metal implant out of my mouth like a jackhammer on the sidewalk. There was shrapnel flying everywhere. I thought, oh my God, she's going to break a tooth. I'm going to have more dental work. Before I could even say a thing about it, I couldn't get any air. I sat up. I can't breathe. There's water in my nose. Yes, she said, "Don't worry, Lisa. I'll tell you what it is. It's just because there's a hole in your sinus and the water's coming out." As long as that's all it is, I thought. I hung in there, and we got to the part where she started stitching. Very quickly, I sat up again. I'm gagging. It's in my throat. That her stitcher or whatever she uses to sew up the hole was all the way down my throat, and it was making me choke. Finally, it was over. I left, and a few days later, I didn't feel very good. In fact, I felt worse than I had before, and I noticed I had the hole of the size of my tip of my pinky in my upper jaw. Finally, I called another dentist, who immediately got me in to see an oral surgeon the next day. That surgeon, Dr. S, performed one of 4 surgeries that day to try and close the hole that Dr. E had left in my mouth. He took tissue from underneath my lip all the way back to my ear, and I had dozens of stitches, but that didn't work. He harvested tissue from my palate at the top of my mouth and brought it down over this hole in my upper jaw and stitched. That didn't work either. But at least he put me to sleep. Toastmasters, tomorrow, if the weather permits, I'm going to have a CAT scan in preparation for checking into the hospital next week. I'm checking into the hospital next week because a head and neck oncologist who performs this special flap procedure is going to harvest a lot more tissue from somewhere in my mouth to hopefully cover this hole up for good. In spite of knowing what I should do, say no to Dr. E and just extricate myself from her office, in spite of that nudge being so strong and the force telling me, no, 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 I let her do this procedure on me when I shouldn't have done so. I knew better. The next time you're faced with a decision and you're feeling that nudge or you're just hesitant, wondering, should I do this? Think of me and my bacteria superhighway. Then think again and trust your gut. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, we should trust and I'll pray for you for your soon recovery. Maggie is thrilled to be speaking again about one of her favorite and most frustration topics, dealing with change. And her speech today is Here We Go Again. Let's welcome Maggie Fisher.
Thank you very much, Zahn. As I said, it is thrilling for me to be here again to share what I